Your book has been pirated and sold for as low as $7 Australian. Very
Wow.
sad. How do you feel when you hear this?
Number three
Number
is
three,
being innovative,
innovative.
thinking outside the square. So think of the avocado. The problem wasn't selling the retailers more or giving them recipe cards. People weren't buying to take home. People were consuming out of home. You know, Gen Z are all on their own with how they think about things.
Okay.
So using AI to inform decisions as an enhancer is a good thing. Don't rely on it alone, but it should be part of the tool.
So
And the meat.
it's a breed in
Oh,
Australia
yes,
and then
absolutely.
exported to Japan.
Correct. At a premium price.
And then Japan export again to another country.
I don't know about that, but you may know that.
Now you are listening to the Spice Guy. Hello guys, welcome back with me, the Spice Guy. Today is very excited for me because will be my first interview in English. Here in the studio, I have Professor Robin. How are you?
I'm very well.
Wow.
Great to be here.
I'm very happy and honored that you here today in this studio. How is your flight yesterday?
Yes, very good. No bumpiness, no storms. Very good.
It's great to have you here, Professor Robert. But before we start, I would like to say thanks to Australian Award because I am the lucky one that gained the opportunity to become one of the participant of Australian Award for 2 weeks in Australia and meet many important people, especially like you. Thank you once again for Australia Award. For those who are listening, Professor Robert is an associate professor in agribusiness and trade at Griffith Business School and an expert in business development. When a company or association or even a country or government has a specific problem with agribusiness and export, experts like Professor Robert are often called to find a solution. So today we will talk about her experience and insight in agribusiness world. Professor Robert, could you share a bit about what drew you into this field of agribusiness and trade, and what aspect of it continue to keep you inspired at your work?
Well, that's a great question. And I have to go way back because I grew up in a family that loved food, and my mother and father loved food. So very early on, we cooked many cultures of food in our home, many
Wow.
cultures. So that drew me into being involved in food, love food, and then, of course, now employed in food, which is terrific.
Okay. That's your beginning, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you love food, and then next what? You go to business school, and what you do?
I think mine, like many people my age who are older, they have many sort of stages in their life. So my first stage after leaving school, I was so passionate about food that I entered a cooking competition. And I won that competition. It was a very famous biscuit in Australia called an Anzac biscuit made with oats. And from that, I won that competition, and the award was an apprenticeship as a chef. And that's how I got into cooking.
So you are a chef actually before.
Yes, that was my first job for about 8 years.
8 years as a chef.
Yeah.
And then?
But after long years on my feet, I moved into more understanding the creation of food. So I moved into food and beverage management. And then from there, I decided I need some formal qualifications. So I went to university to study the business to connect the food with business. And so then I was in roles doing food marketing, product manager, so milk, fruit juice, chocolate, many products. And then ultimately, I wanted to do more formal studies. So I undertook my PhD and I studied, of all things, mangoes in Asia. And so with that PhD, I'm now at a university trying to share my many years of experience with my students. So thank you for asking.
Wow, great. In your role at Griffith University, should it called Griffith University or Griffith Business School?
Well, every university has different schools. So Griffith University has the Griffith Business School, but we also have the Griffith Science School where we teach medicine, agriculture, and we have the Griffith Arts, Education and Law. So I'm located in the business school because I work on the business aspects of food.
In your role at Griffith Business School, you are involved in both research and academia. Could you tell us more about how you balance this responsibility?
Yes, well, that's a magic trick, I think, some days. But really, many academics do research and teaching. But what's important is that if an academic is active in research, the research will inform the teaching. And that means the students are getting the most recent information, but they're also working on what we call applied activities in their studies, which is really good, makes it real world.
Applied academic, can you explain a little
Sure.
bit?
So let's say I'm teaching international business. So under international business, we might study free trade agreements, like the one
Yes.
you and I are enjoying between Australia and Indonesia.
Yes.
So because of that, we then give the students examples. So I might share from your experiences in the course, from my trade with strawberries with Indonesia, I will share this with the students. So we're not just learning out of a book, we're learning with real world activities.
With the focus of agribusiness trade, what would you say are some of the biggest opportunity and the challenge currently facing world agriculture and especially in Asia?
That's such a big question, but let's see if we can find, let's call it some hotspots.
Okay.
So one, of course, is globalization. We've got more people moving. We've got more, because of those people moving, more demand for different food, multiculturalism. So that is an area, globalization. Another area is perhaps climate change. Issues with trying to really continue to live as people and eat and survive, but also protect this world that we've been given. So that's a really important area. Consumer demand. We know across Asia, many cities are rising in population. Many people are moving to city areas from rural to urban. And we also know that the increasing amount of GDP and wealth, the money, is coming. So people are demanding more things. So they're just a couple of the areas that are really driving change in food trends.
That's in Asia. How about do you think about the rest of the world? Is it same or different?
I think it's probably the same, but it varies in degrees. So we know South America is really populating its culture in Northern America. So we know there's a lot more Spanish influence. We know there's in the Mediterranean, there's influence there. Even you and I were just discussing the Middle East
Yes.
and the food trends there. So I think it's happening across the world, but with the recent recovery from the pandemic, I think if we divide the world into three, into a triad, the Asia region is the most promising and growing the most fast.
That's for agriculture,
Yeah, for agriculture, for the trade of food and non-food items.
non-food item. Is that we talk in the car about the rise of animal food?
Yes.
Is it include in this the trend?
I think that there is that trend, but I think probably more, we all need protein. Protein is needed in our life. And depending on our choice or depending on our culture, then we might choose to not have animal food, but we might choose to have plant-based proteins. So there is a growth in both those areas. There is also contrasting the respect with animals. And so therefore things such as live trade of animals is perhaps declining. And then there's the increase in things like algae, seaweed,
yes.
or even pests, insects. They have protein. And of course, leading the way is soy. Soy is
Soy.
leading the way in both popularity and brands as a plant-based protein in people's daily lives in Asia.
This is very interesting. Can we disclose this about the uh, export animal from livestock from Australia? You explained that Australia in which year?
2026.
2026, Australia will stop all livestock export to the rest of the world.
Yeah, probably just to define, it has agreed to stop live trade of sheep to the Middle East in 2026.
Why is that?
I think we're probably becoming a more sensitive society, and that sensitivity means respect for people, but respect for animals and plants as well. So it's a decision that's been made, but I think there's opportunities for processed foods, value-added foods, and foods that we have in Australia that I'm really proud of. Cherries, oh my goodness, Australian cherries are wonderful. Australian seafood. So there are products that we can still trade and replace this market.
Okay, only for sheep only.
Yeah, I think so at this stage.
Okay, interesting. You've conducted extensive research and mapping of export opportunity across nation. From your perspective, what key factor should company or even government prioritize when evaluating this opportunity?
If you're a company and even your government, we all know how our industries work. So that's the supply, isn't it? So being more productive at the farm level, having less waste, greater product to be sold, we can do that. We know it. But my passion and my penchant is with demand.
With demand.
Demand. Who wants to buy what? You know, there was a famous Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams.
Okay.
If you build it, they will come. Well, you first have to understand, what are you going to build? So by understanding demand at a granular level, that means your market. So for you, for your products, for anyone in our course, understanding who wants to buy your product and why. That's really important. So I would say to governments, give industry and universities more funds so they can help their people understand how to trade the food and what's required. Really important.
You done this so many things. I mean the research and the government who fund all this research. Is it correct?
Most of the research, yes, either the government of my own country or perhaps governments contributing to people like the UNTACD or the FAO or the World Bank. So there are NGOs, there are funded entities, and many of them are trying to help developing countries to advance and commercialize their trade, not to change their culture or behavior, but to have them have less waste, have more economic benefit, and therefore empower their livelihoods. And you know, often it's not about money. Often it's about community change. So one example I'd love to share with you is I did a project and we wanted to reduce the losses. We wanted to improve the economic ability. Why? Because in an average family that we were working with, there were 2 children, but only one got to go to school because the other had to work on the farm. So the goal was economic empowerment so both children could go to school. That was the answer.
Australia government or many other government is not in Indonesia. It's I think it's thinking different. You know, I don't know, maybe because of corruption or something like that. Yeah, I think like Australian government spent a lot of money to doing research and something like this. You know, very interesting.
It is very interesting, and I think most governments have a split in their foreign activity. You know, we have a Department of Foreign Affairs, but within that, foreign affairs, there is the element called Australia's aid to our neighbours. So many of my project has been with the Australian Centre for International Agriculture Research. So that work is with countries like Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia to assist. But then there's also a Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry, and that department works with our Australian farmers. So 60% of what we produce, we don't need in Australia. We export it.
Okay.
So therefore, research activities that are focused on helping our farmers and our industries export are very important. So it's a two-pronged approach. So I guess you could say I've seen the research from both sides.
Can you tell us about the role of consumer insight in developing export strategy? And how important is it to understand the preference and value of consumer in Asia market when it comes to product like mango and avocado?
You know, how we consume food is all different. I think I was telling you some experiences of eating prawns in Indonesia.
Yes.
You know, how we eat them. So for a researcher to understand how someone engages with food is very important. So in Australia, most homes have a stove, and that is an oven underneath and a cooktop on the top with rings to put pots and pans on. But in a lot of countries in the region, they don't have that equipment. So therefore, in Australia, we have more in-home consumption. Therefore, the retailing is communicated at recipes, how to cook, how to prepare. But in a lot of other countries, such as Singapore or Hong Kong, there is more out-of-home consumption. So therefore, we have to speak to people such as the channel called Horeca. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Hotels.
Hotel, restaurant, and cafe.
Catering,
Yeah, catering, yes.
So when you appeal to those categories, you're talking to chefs. You're not talking to the consumer. The chef in his restaurant talks to the customer. But in the retail, it's a different approach. So when you do research to understand how the consumption is undertaken, very important, and you can clearly feed that back so you can prepare the product in the appropriate manner. And that includes packaging, size, offering, fresh, frozen, dried. How are we going to do it?
If we talk about Horeca, which one has the main control? Is the chef or the restaurant owner or the purchasing?
Oh, wow. Well, of course, if we're talking a big hotel like a 5-star, then the chef has budgets to meet. But the purchasing manager would do the purchasing on behalf of the chef. But there's another person in there called the food and beverage manager. And I would like to think, looking back many years ago on my experience, it's a team approach. What does our hotel stand for? What do we want to present? So in your travels, you may have seen many hotels have promotions.
Yes.
And so 1 month might be Australia month. So the meals, the food, the product that's sourced all comes from that country. So I'd like to think there's a collaborative approach.
So you cannot just aim for one person.
I don't think so. I think you have to talk to them all. And that's where international trade shows, you've just attended,
Yes.
international trade shows count. So Australia needs to be there, the producers need to be there, and we need to show, hey, this is what we can bring you.
In your view, what trend do you anticipate will become a major global force in the upcoming years?
There's a number of things, but probably 3 that stand out.
What is that?
Health and well-being.
Health and well-being.
Well-being. So people are seeking to enrich and improve their lives.
Yes.
So perhaps we could look at things like by 2030, there will be 131 million people who perhaps will be suffering from diabetes.
Wow.
By 2040, we will have 156 million people worldwide suffering from dementia. in their old age. So this trend, as one of three, this trend is so important because people are looking at products that can help their life, whether they be natural products or what we call functional and fortified products, where we add calcium or we add iron or we take several natural ingredients and we pull them together, like our blue pea tea. Is that what it's called? Blue pea?
It's called bunga telang.
So, yeah, more buwatalang. Absolutely.
Understood. Global major force, it will be the health
And well-being,
and well-being
is one. Another is premium offerings.
premium offering.
Yeah. So what's important there is premium offerings are where we talk about something is the best of a category. So the best grapes, or, you know, we know the best strawberries at the moment are coming from Korea. Wonderful variety and wonderful flavors. Terrific product. But then we also have something called the luxury market. That's different to premium.
So a premium and then luxury.
Yeah, but premium is normally about a commodity, such as a fruit, a nut, or a seafood.
Okay.
But luxury is about a product that is sometimes scarce and linked to a social status. So that's very different. And so being linked to a social status means normally people are prepared to pay more, and perhaps there's only a small amount of it produced each year.
Enlighten us. What's the example?
I guess probably you could look at caviar. There's only so much caviar. You could look at the best of those grapes that are produced in Japan. So when something is short in supply and it's linked to a social status,
Okay.
then people are prepared to pay
It's
more. It's luxury.
not
When it's
premium.
premium, it's the best of a category.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the rest, the cheap one, what you called?
Well, it's a product
It's
that
a-
we all
it's a
love to
product.
buy. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But the premium market and the luxury market are both continuing to grow. So if we look at the latest statistics, probably by 2030, it will be 160 billion US dollars, the premium market.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Growing.
Yeah. So if you want to trade in that market, then you know at the farm level, your product is the best of the best, but your product is also the best in its processing and the way it's presented. And that leads us to number 3,
What is that?
sustainable solutions.
Sustainable. Okay.
And that's a number of things. That's about packaging. That's about the way we prepare products. So maybe the packaging has come from some sort of natural environment. We've now seen cornstarch knives and forks. We've seen cornstarch packaging.
Banana leaf maybe.
Banana leaf, a natural packaging. And then product that's come from recycled packaging and can be recycled again in the future. Also, that the packaging is biodegradable. So perhaps a really good example when I worked in milk is that when you chop the top off the milk carton after you've finished, we've taken out all the nasties, all the wax, you can put some soil in, you can put a seed, and you can put it in a pot plant or in your garden.
I saw that before.
It's very good.
Okay.
Very good.
You know, the packaging issue, it linked actually to the first one, the health, because like the BPA can cause health problem.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And issues such as microplastics.
Yes, correct.
Very bad.
Understood.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, interesting. Now let's look at the case study on Australian avocado export to Singapore. Could you walk us through what happened? What caused the decline in export to Singapore?
Now, first of all, let's be clear. Australian avocados in the export field are enjoying wonderful success. So it's probably a number of years ago, but when we first started to export avocados, we just couldn't understand why people in Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, didn't enjoy them as much as we did. So we did the studies, we understood how they're using them, and we found some interesting things. So in Australia, we put avocados in salads. We chop it up, put some lemon, maybe some mayonnaise, and we have it with Mexican food. And so we use nachos and corn chips. But do you know, when I went to Singapore and Kuala Lumpur, that's not what they did with avocados.
What they do?
Oh, they put it in a drink with some milk and some mango, maybe a lassi. And they used it in different ways. The other thing we found is if you translate avocado into the local Singaporean Chinese language, it means butterfruit. And it is, isn't it? But do you know what? The ladies wouldn't eat it because maybe they might put on weight.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So we had a problem with the translation. Also, the product was in supermarkets. In Singapore, not many people, like we spoke about, have the oven, the setup, the ring top. Actually, there is more out-of-home consumption than in-home consumption. So pretty quickly, I worked out we needed to speak to the restaurants. So the wonderful thing we did was we put on training and development, which always happens with chefs and all their team. We trained over 2,000 chefs in a 2-week period in workshops. We give them avocados, we give them a knife, we give them workbook, but it wasn't me telling the story. It was their own chefs telling them the story.
Interesting.
On how to use the avocado.
Who funded this project?
The Australian government.
The Australian government.
Invested in its industry. Absolutely fantastic.
Wow. Not the association or company.
No, the association really is there to, with me, to guide the research and development. But it's the government saying, okay, you've made your case. There's an opportunity. Now let's see how we can improve it. What is the value add?
Wow.
Yeah.
When did this start? And how long did it take to solve this issue? And what step did you take?
So really, the trade had been happening for a couple of years. We took about 18 months. So first of all, we had to go in market, look, observe, speak to people, understand what's going on, then come back and consult. None of these projects are done by one individual. It's a collective discussion. You know, you're representing the interests of the avocado farmers, you're representing the interests of the industry, and then you're working with the government to say, okay, what can we do? So we're looking at about 18 months. And then from that 18 months, we then monitor the sales of avocado through the restaurants, through the wholesaler. So we're probably looking at the 3-year mark, and we could see that threefold avocado exports had increased. Threefold.
Whoa. So your success in your project.
Yeah, absolute success. But success for the industry is really important. And I think more than anything, acknowledgement that they won one of the premier Australian Export Awards. So they were acknowledged as really making a contribution to Australian exports.
Since this case was successful, are there any times that things didn't go as planned? And could you turn the situation around?
Look, I think that no research project goes perfectly, but certainly I've had a number of projects where things just went awry. So a good example, we were just talking about strawberries to Indonesia. Well, you know, Australians love strawberries. Indonesians love strawberries.
Yes.
You have local strawberries. You have strawberries from Korea that come over, maybe sometimes Japan. But Australia really felt we could have an understanding and a trade of strawberries. So I was a part of a project. We then obviously sent the strawberries over to work with the wonderful ranch market. So we love to work with them. And the strawberries, of course, could not go direct to Jakarta. They had to go Brisbane to Singapore, Singapore to Jakarta.
Wow.
So what happens when product goes and has a stop? Maybe it gets heat affected.
Become bad, yeah.
So when it arrives at the other end, I arrive ready to talk to consumers about these strawberries. I think I had strawberry jam. Not many strawberries were ready. So we could save some, but what we realized, not that Indonesians didn't love strawberries or wouldn't like our strawberry variety, but logistically behind the scenes, it was going to be a hard market to enter because of distribution and logistics.
Okay, so did you do anything?
We don't export strawberries
to Indonesia.
Jakarta.
It stopped.
We have other things we can offer you.
What?
But Oranges?
Oranges from Australia also.
Yes, you have
Uh-huh.
lots of our wonderful navel oranges. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sometimes you have our mangoes, sometimes,
Uh-huh.
premium time. But really, not every project can go to plan. And so
Okay.
you look at what is possible, what is doable.
Understood.
Yeah.
Do you have any other case study to share with us? How about the mango market?
Mangoes are a wonderful fruit. I grew up in a state in Australia called Queensland, and it's the top of Australia.
Okay.
So Queensland is very tropical, like Indonesia, and mangoes are one of our favorite fruit. So, of course, we like to export it, but what more than anything we have is expertise. Every step of the chain we have expertise. Not just myself at the retail consumer end, but we have pathologists, entomologists, post-harvest people who all are skilled. So under the program ASIA, Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research, we had a project for 4 years in Vietnam trying to help the smallholder farmers to reduce waste, reduce chemical use, and to improve the trade of their mangoes domestically and across the border to Hong Kong, to China, even to EU. So mango there was an opportunity, like I said, to empower the livelihood of smallholder farmers.
Okay, I understand. So for greater good.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this kind of project, how many people get involved?
Those sort of projects, they are over the $1 million mark in Australian money, so quite significant. Normally over 3 or 4 years, we would have research institutes in the country, Vietnam. We have 2 or 3 institutes involved in Australia. So across the program, I had 57 people in the team,
Oh,
all
many.
working from the farm to the retailer. And so our job in those 3 to 4 years to look what changes could be made, what were the farmers doing now, what could they do differently, but more than anything, we needed buy-in. You know, it's wrong for an outsider to walk in and tell a farmer to change. We have to sit down, discuss, and say, okay, how are you doing it now? Are you happy with that? How can we do it differently? And so when you discover that he's only selling 40% of his orchard and 60% is either being sold as second grade or fed to the pigs, you know you've got a problem. How can we improve that farming and the trade and get more products sold so he can get more economic benefit?
What role do government policy and trade regulation play in shaping agribusiness strategy in Asia? Could you give us an example?
Sure. So, as I said, ASIA is a statutory body in Australia under our Department of Foreign Affairs. It's a really important centre that has a long and rich history in many countries in our neighbouring Asia Pacific. But in each country is a country manager. So you've got one here in Indonesia, one in Vietnam, Philippines. So along with the country managers, the key program managers in Canberra, the key stakeholders, so industry associations, discussions are held all the time and annually about what are the priorities in those countries. And the priority needs to be led by the country so that it's relevant, it's realistic, and it's timely. So it's not about Australia saying this is what a country needs. It's a collaboration. But more than anything else, in 2024, 2025 going forward, it's about public-private partnerships. Everybody working together, government, industry, and of course, don't forget the researchers like me.
Okay, wonderful. Let's move to another segment. I would like to explore more about your works, especially in a book that you publish a book. You collaborate in that. The name of the book is Contemporary International Business in Asia Pacific Region. Could you share some main themes from the book that are useful for entrepreneur?
It's interesting as an academic, and as I've told you, I had a life before I joined university, but sharing with students key concepts comes from providing textbooks in courses. So as someone who's experienced and an industry practitioner with applied research, then publishing a textbook with other authors was really important to me. I could get out there and share my experiences. So we teamed up with Cambridge University. You may know, very famous university.
Of course.
But of course, they prepare and assemble textbooks. So 18 months took us to prepare the textbook. The key concepts I contributed to things like regional integration, free trade agreements, but also things like new market opportunities. And when we've researched a market and understood it, the next phase is what we call ideation. Ideation is where you pull those ideas together and you make sense of them so that you can say, okay, this is what we should focus on and move forward with. You might have 2 or 3 ideas, and along the way, like Tollgate, you'll decide yes, no. But several of those chapters are about ideation, how to move international trade forward and how to provide those products. So the book itself is an undergraduate book, but I think the book plus the academics experience, whoever's delivering it, the book is available in Australia, New Zealand, whoever's delivering it, they can use the book together to pass on the message and teach the content to students.
I have some sad news.
No.
I saw in Shopee Marketplace Indonesia that your book has been pirated and sold for as low as $7 Australian.
Wow.
Very sad. How do you feel when you hear this?
Well, look, you know, obviously the first part of me is a bit disappointed because it's pirated. However, the other side of me, the optimist, and I'm a glass half full girl.
Okay.
Not a glass half empty, glass half full. So the other side of me says, but hey, someone is getting the benefit of my content. Someone is being able to share the content. So to me, it's about my ability to share my experiences, whether people like them, dislike them, take them on board. But it's the ability for someone to learn. And, you know, even at our age, we're still learning, aren't we?
Yeah, okay, but it's pirated, you know.
I know. It's wrong,
Yeah,
but it's out
wrong.
there.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, guys, please buy the real book, okay? From maybe Amazon or...
Yeah, it could be Amazon or even Cambridge University Press Direct.
they can
and you can
buy
buy it in ebook or you can buy it in print copy. Or sometimes there's secondhand books which are not so expensive. You can buy a used copy. Maybe a student has finished their course and wants to sell their book online.
Yes, that will be better.
Yeah.
Will be cheaper.
Please do.
Okay.
Please do.
What are some key insights from your research on consumption preference in Asia? Have you found any surprising shift?
I think probably the most surprising shift, and I was just talking to a colleague of ours this morning about it, is that shifts happen because of people. People change their mind, people make decisions. But shifts also happen from exposure. So, you know, I was in product management for many years. And the interesting thing was in the 90s in Australia, the most traveled destination from our eastern seaboard, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, was Bangkok.
Bangkok.
Correlated with that was the most number of increased restaurants in Australia was Thai. Amazing.
Yes.
So when you correlate like that, it's almost like agritourism. So people go away, they experience red curry, green curry, tom yum gai with coconut, fish sauce, and they come home and they want to replicate. They want to emulate the food that they had because they want that experience to keep lingering in their heart and their mouth.
Yes.
They want to keep going. And you know, now, today, when you talk about changing trends, you know the biggest trend in Australia now? Japanese food. Everyone's been in March, April to see sakura. the cherry blossoms. So everyone comes home. Oh, I'd like miso soup, miso paste. I'd like to have these amazing fruit and cream sandwiches that they sell at cafes in Japan. And then other foods, sashimi,
Yeah, yeah.
sushi,
Many things, yeah.
teppanyaki.
Takoyaki, many things.
Yeah, many things. But it's the next trend. So when we look at the statistics in Horeca, the most newly opened restaurants are Japanese.
Japanese. Is it because the Australian people travel to Japan
Correct.
more than Bangkok right now?
Yes.
Is Bali still has a place in Australia?
I think Bali will always have a place in Australia's hearts. So there's a lot happening in Bali at the moment. So yeah.
But not many Indonesian restaurant open in Australia.
No, I'm sorry to say.
Why do you think?
Look, I think at the moment for me and the work you and I have been on this course together, I think we need to sell the story. We need to sell a story. The original Spice Islands.
Okay.
We need that map. We need to tell people, where does this peppercorn come from? It's not just a peppercorn. It's a peppercorn from Sumatra. We need to sell the story.
Yeah.
That's your job.
I read that you've also published research on AI. How do you think AI will impact agribusiness in the future?
AI is an interesting area, and I do have a couple of students working in that area for their PhD. AI is something, along with digital technology, that should be used to advance agribusiness, used as a tool to enhance. And so understanding how AI can help is really important. And that could be down to social media analytics. It could be down to how people like companies write and prepare their communication, especially if it's with a specific generation. You know, Gen Z are all on their own with how they think about things.
Okay.
So using AI to inform decisions as an enhancer is a good thing. Don't rely on it alone, but it should be part of the tool.
I think currently our team also rely very much on AI to do research, article, many things, copywriting. It will help. But in agribusiness, I think will be kind of different, you know. And how about the social media, do you think?
Look, social media is an interesting area. I think that a company or an agribusiness group, if it's an industry group, they need to understand who is their target audience and align it with the social media. This morning I was talking to a dear friend about his product, Jamu, and we were talking about what he was doing. So yeah, there were things going out on Instagram, but is that really targeted? Who would benefit from buying your Jamu? And we sat down, we unpacked. Well, young mothers who are busy with young children, advance as a contribution to their health and their lifestyle. Older people who are needing some help with their lifestyle. So once you start to unpack that, then you understand, well, what piece of social media should I be using? TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or perhaps closed groups, yummy mummies. I'm not sure what you call them here in Indonesia.
What's yummy mommy?
Young women who've had a small child who wish to maintain their health and their beauty.
Understand. Okay, got it now. Yeah.
And are very committed to their health and beauty.
Yep.
So if you're doing a broad brush approach, you could be wasting your time as a business. Who is your target market? What media do they use?
Should focus on that. Okay. Let's talk about your background as a chef before. Could you share some of your business experience with us? I remember you mentioned selling one of your venture for a good amount. Was it a bakery or catering business? I can't remember.
Obviously, my first job was as a chef, and I had the privilege to do my apprenticeship. Many young ones in Australia would work at restaurants, hotels, but I had the privilege to work for the governor of Queensland. So the king from England has in every state of Australia his representative. That's the governor. So I lived and worked at Government House in Brisbane. So that's where I did my apprenticeship. So I served people like the Queen, Prince Philip, but also I got exposure to what I call fine cooking. Fine cooking. So with that knowledge in hand, many years later, I got married to a wonderful man.
Oh.
Wonderful man. And he and I were like many young people trying to save and get ahead. So we started a wedding cake business.
Wedding
Pastry.
cake.
Yeah,
Pastry.
bakery.
Okay, now I
So,
remember.
Yeah. So we made wedding cakes. But that you didn't make a lot of cakes, but you sat down and you talked through with the bride and the family, well, what cake are you looking for? And we made all sorts of cakes. Cakes that looked like under the sea with mermaids. We made cakes with roses. We made cakes with all sorts of flowers that were all made out of fine sugar. And my husband, who comes from Wales, had the fine sugar skills. I had okay skills, but he was good. So lilies, roses, daffodils, many flowers. So that experience was terrific. At the same time, we both held a job Monday to Friday. And so we worked very hard. And after 4 years, we sold that business.
You sold that?
Yeah.
Okay. As an entrepreneur, what would you recommend to make a business valuable enough to attract buyer or even investor?
Well, I think the issue is the SCA. That's how I'd put it, the sustainable competitive advantage. So these days, many of the theorists talk about outsourcing. Oh, well, I can outsource the distribution. I can outsource this. But what is it about the business that makes your product or service unique? So in our case, it really, truly was my husband's skill. His ability to ice a cake very quickly, his ability to make flowers out of sugar or make croquembouche, the French pastry type profiterole cake. But that was the competitive advantage. So when we sold the business, the person who bought it was already a cake maker. But we had an existing database of customers. So we not only made a bride's cake, we often made her first baby's cake. And then we made her mother's 80th birthday cake. So actually in the business, we made relationships.
I understand.
So our sustainable competitive advantage was giving the best cake, right, on the money, first time, and then we sold the business. But people need to understand, what are you good at? What is the key bit of your business? And you need to hold on to that. And when you sell, that is the bit you're selling.
How do you decide this is the right amount for me to sell the whole company? How do you calculate like the valuation?
I think that's going to be different for everyone, depending if the sale is a package of including property and all sorts of things. But I think getting someone to value your brand, your brand equity, is really important, because often it's the future value of your business that's wrapped up in that sale. So at the point in time when we sold, I had 52 cakes on order. 52. And so what that meant, the person who bought the business had a guaranteed income from 52 forward orders on very expensive wedding cakes. So I think it's not an easy question. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. But I think knowing what is your brand value, your brand equity, that's a really important part of it.
So you get like third person
Yes,
to
yeah,
calculate the valuation.
Yeah, get someone to value your brand and your business.
Okay.
Someone who knows it. And if you've got any IP, value that IP.
Yes, correct.
Absolutely.
Climate change is a big concern for agriculture. How have you seen it impacting agribusiness in Australia and for exports?
Sure. I think that the interesting area is products can contribute to sustainable solutions, but we have to find them. And we also have to understand what's going on. Yes, we hear about climate change. We hear about water challenges. There's a number of areas that are important to us. For us in Australia, water. Now, we're a big country, but water is the challenge, and it's only going to go up as you farm more land. So we need to look at, are we using the whole of the product? So let me qualify that by saying I was with someone the other week who's a prawn farmer, and they prawns, shrimps.
Shrimp, prawn,
And
okay.
so they export these products. They also peel and shell them, so they export them ready to cook. But I said, what are you doing with the shells? So, oh, nothing, we just throw them away. Well, do you know you can get prawn oil from shells?
Prawn?
Oil.
Oil, okay.
Prawn oil. Now that can be used for cooking. We can also get oil from fish guts, fish heads, these sort of things. Well, we talked before about health supplements. So we can make vitamins and minerals and health supplements from the remnants of the food that we're preparing. So sustainable food solutions are one way we can do that.
That's the answering the question, right? About the climate change.
Yeah.
Like we maximize the our yield and result.
Yeah. And I think maximizing yield means we minimize waste. You know that there's an expression about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Oh, I saw that before.
Yeah, and it's very bad how much is being
Very
put into
big,
the
yes.
Pacific.
Yes, yes.
So when we're a business, are we a contributor to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? It's an important question.
And how about Southeast Asia, especially Indonesia? What do you think?
In terms of climate change and
Yes.
challenges? Look, you know, there's a number of challenges. One you already know about, which is trying to upkeep the nutrition of the people and the children, lunches.
Our new
Yeah.
president.
The new president. And what a great opportunity. I know that you're already working towards lunches, but making sure that everyone is nutritionally nourished is a very important area. So that falls back on farming. That falls back on how you're going to provide it. So if we're going to provide that, thinking through, well, is there going to be a regulated policy enforced? No, you can't put it in general plastic. How are
Okay.
you going to look at things that you can derive from your resources that you can use to contribute to solve this lunch problem? Well, the packaging, the lunch, everything. But there's no doubt we can't fight the climate change. What we can do is work within our bounds to be able to address these challenges. Even people like yourselves, you know, your packaging of your spices.
Yes,
The
we have
external, the
still
internal. Yeah.
plastic and box like this.
Yeah,
paper.
but I'm sure you've got an R&D team working on how can you
Let's see.
change the approach.
Yes, I hope so also. What strategy can agribusiness use to handle this environmental challenge?
I believe certainly in Australia we're already doing it, and that's less chemical use, less pesticide use, more use of land, but also the ability, where possible, to rest land. That becomes important as well. Another that I've found in many of our neighbouring countries is that we're very quick to try and build our fruit, pineapples, mangoes, whatever, but there is an area we need to manage, which is post-harvest. Trees are like children. We need to refeed, refuel them before we ask them to fruit again. So managing that is really important. So the right chemical use and remembering chemical goes into our food. We know it as MRLs, but chemical goes into our land and it stays there. So we need to have some sort of education and treatment approach for that. But we also need to manage our emissions as well.
What advice would you give to young entrepreneur entering agribusiness? Are there specific skill or area of knowledge that are specifically important?
Being an entrepreneur means that you're normally out of the box. You don't fit a particular mold. But I think, if anything, passion is number one because we can fall down. So we have to have the ability to pick ourselves up again. But number two is we need to understand numbers. Whatever we're in, Doesn't matter if we're in fruit, vegetable, flowers, but numbers. So when I say numbers, you need to work out, as you well know as a businessman, how much does it cost? What are my expenses and how much am I left with at the end?
Yes.
How much can I afford to discount or reduce or make a special offer for someone to buy my product? So we need to be able to use numbers. And so I encourage everyone, even if you weren't good at school, see if you can do some small courses on accounting, on numbers, because, there's an expression that everyone can understand. If the numbers don't add up, they don't add up. Whether that's buying, borrowing, whether that's selling someone a product, make sure you're clear. The greatest thing you can do is know, what is my financial position for my business? How much do I buy it for? How much does it cost me to make? And how much, therefore, is my range that I can sell it for?
Okay. First one is patient, and number two is number. They should
Yes.
accounting and something
Yep.
like that. Is this anything else, do you think?
Number three
Number
is
three?
being innovative.
Innovative.
Thinking outside the square. So think of the avocado. The problem wasn't selling the retailers more or giving them recipe cards. People weren't buying to take home. People were consuming out of home. So being able to look at something and know what is going on in the environment.
Okay.
Innovation.
How can small-scale producer get into export market? Are there strategic or partnership that could help them?
Yeah, it's always a hard one for smallholders. What are their options? What's happening in their environment? For me, it's always two is better than one. That's the expression. So collaborate, partner, work together as a cooperative. Some of our most famous companies and brands in Australia started as cooperatives in the early years. If we look at a brand in Australia, Golden Circle started with pineapple farmers in Queensland banding together, starting their marketing and their distribution, having everybody's fruit go under one brand. So that's Golden Circle. We have another example in Victoria at the bottom of the country, Goulburn Valley. Again, stone fruit farmers, peach, apricot, all banding together, not just to make tin fruit, to make jam, to make many products from their products. So working together means you can grow together, but you can also invest in your children. Because if they're farming, maybe the children have the chance to go to school, learn the business, learn the marketing, and they become the future leaders of your cooperative. Not an external person. The village, the farm, the community works together to advance.
Collaboration is very important.
Correct.
What are the some common mistake you see agribusiness make when entering new market, and how can they avoid them?
Yeah, look, if we could look into the future, that would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Would be a good thing.
Unfortunately, cannot.
Yeah, you cannot. We talk about research, and I don't mean research from an academic point of view, but exploration, let's call it. So many people I've spoken to have gone into a foreign market. They haven't been to the market. They haven't checked up on the people they're dealing with. Yes, we know that trading happens and the banks get involved and there's bank guarantees. That's all fine. But what about the company? Have you been over there? Have you looked? Are you dealing with a company that already you have some concerns about? The expression again is, if the hairs stand up on your neck, that's for a reason. So I'll give you an example. I joined a company in Australia called Berry Fruit Juice, just to help with the export trade of fruit juice. They had something like 120 regional trade agreements with people to represent and sell their fruit juice. 120.
So many.
So many. So then we have to categorize them. A, based on volume and price. B, C, and D. So then we look at the A's and B's. So who else was selling a fruit juice? Why would you sell your fruit juice to a company that already has a competitive fruit juice? because people made decisions over the phone. People made decisions without doing exploration and research. Ask people, oh, did they pay on time? You know, there's a number of questions you can ask before you decide, is someone going to be your distributor, your agent?
What called due diligence?
That's it, due diligence.
You recently spoke at 2024 Global Agribusiness Management and Entrepreneurship Conference in the Philippines. Could you share the main takeaway from your presentation?
Sure. The Game 24 conference is held every 3 years, and it's the Global Agribusiness Management and Entrepreneurship Conference. University of the Philippines, Los Banos, was the host. Thank you, everybody. And it was a wonderful time, even though there was a typhoon. That was a little bit
Really?
scary.
Typhoon?
Yeah, Typhoon Catherine.
Okay.
But it was an interesting time. And the key takeaways were to talk to people about, do they understand what's happening in the trading environment in our Asia Pacific neighborhood? So things like megatrends we touched on, globalization, consumer demand, sustainability, novel foods, all sorts of things. And then the next area we really got down to was understanding why people are buying. And I'm back on my soapbox again, understanding demand. So that's what we talked about. And in fact, there was a few people in the audience from really big firms like Metro Pacific. And the discussion was about, well, where to from here? What will we do next? And it has to come back to demand and the people. What do people need to buy and what is missing from their diets?
You mentioned about megatrend. How many points in the megatrend?
5 megatrends.
5. Can you explain maybe the first point?
So the first point was globalization.
Globalization, yeah.
Yeah, which of course, as we said, is people moving. A lot more transportation of people. So in your own city here in Jakarta, you've got a lot of expats.
Yes.
So people bringing their culture. But you've also got Indonesians living in the regional area in Australia, in New Zealand. And so we have what we call the diaspora, where Indonesian people are seeking their own foods in those countries. So globalization means the trade, the extension of culture and of food.
So it's under megatrend.
Yeah, it is a megatrend.
Why you say it megatrend, not just like big trend or just trend?
I think that megatrend means that there's always many trends happening, but mega means it's making a bigger impact. And we would see that in the numbers. And that's by the number of products being traded, the countries the products are coming from.
How about the second megatrend?
So vulnerability of resources. So we know with climate change, we've got things like reduced stocks of sea fish, aquaculture in the ocean. So we see governments stopping wild caught fishing, but starting more fish farming. That sort of thing. So vulnerability of resources is really about making sure we're understanding what the changes are happening. So it could be more storms. It could be things such as susceptibility to pests, disease, microbes.
Yep.
And if we just use the pandemic as a case, this vulnerability showed us that when we all had to shut down to protect ourselves, that agribusiness trade stopped.
Okay.
Absolutely stopped in Australia. I know in my city, I had no mince, no eggs, and funnily enough, no toilet paper.
It happened in Australia also.
Yes.
I think only in America.
No, in Australia also. Everybody went and bought the toilet paper thinking they're never going to have toilet paper again, or they couldn't use tissues. But yes, so eggs, mince, obviously fruit and vegetables were scarce, and toilet paper.
And toilet paper. But now everything fine.
Everything's back to normal. Same for Jakarta?
Here we use water, so
Okay.
not issue with the toilet paper. I think here, I can't remember actually when the lockdown. I think the food, everything is available. Yeah, I think available. Nothing happened as I
Okay.
remember. But the face mask, it like the price going up.
Yeah.
The medical, but the food, I think it's all normal. Let's talk about premium food product and agri-tourism. This is quite interesting. Premium product offer a unique experience and a sense of luxury. But you said before, premium and luxury is different, right? What trend are you seeing in premium food, like agritourism and convenient luxury?
So I think that back to our premium food discussion, premium food means the best of the best will be exported
Yep.
because to seek that good price for the farmers. So in the case of Australia, Wagyu beef,
Well,
you know, Wagyu beef.
from?
Particular beef that we raise, that the idea originally came from Japan. So in Australia, we grow the beef, or breed the beef, not grow. We breed the beef, and the beef is fed with certain foods. And so there's a marbling in the steak meat. And so that gives you that luxurious meat. It is not my area of specialty, so I apologize to any of the meat experts out there that I'm not describing it correctly. But Wagyu beef is something that it's just such a big success story for Australian exports. Australian mangoes, that is such. We've got two big mangoes. One is the Kensington Pride, very traditional, been around a long time. But then we bred a new mango. And the new mango has fiber-free flesh, so it doesn't get caught in your teeth. It has a lower BRICS, B-R-I-X, which is the sugar content.
Yes.
So when we talk about people wanting to consume fruit but not wanting the high sugar levels, wanting that mouth experience with their fruit, so that's another success story. And you even can look at what Japan's doing with specific rice, specific grapes, different products that they've got. So every country's got something they're working on.
Let me clarify about Wagyu. Is it Wagyu, the famous one, came from Japan? Is it
Originally.
Originally, not
Yeah.
from Australia.
No.
But someone explained to me Wagyu is West Australian Gyu. It means like from West Australian.
Yeah, that's where they're grown, like that's where they're bred. But the original idea is the demand came from Japan. So Japan really defined what they were looking for in a cut of beef. So remember, you used to hear about Kobe beef.
Yes.
Yes. So when we talk about Wagyu, yes, it's Western Australia, but it's a beef to the standard that Japan likes, to the consumer demand. So their demand is driving how we breed and prepare our cattle.
So it's
the meat.
it's a breed in Australia.
Oh, yes,
And
absolutely.
then exported to Japan.
Correct, at a premium price.
And then Japan export again to another country.
I don't know about that, but you may know that.
Okay.
But I know that the Japanese love Wagyu beef. And I know you can find it in Hong Kong, Singapore,
Yes.
China,
They
everywhere.
are very expensive.
Very expensive.
Novel food with unique taste and texture are growing in popularity. Could you share some insight of consumer demand for this experience? Like maybe mango, you said not what's it called?
Fiber-free flesh.
Fiber-free. Yeah.
So lots of things have fiber in them, but when you breed them for different characteristics and traits, you can get different foods. But I think that the main issue is that consumers are demanding. Now, we said that there's a rising middle class in a number of countries. China, as an example, you know, it's expected to grow at 10.2% each year for the next 10 years. So we've got a huge amount of people with disposable, discretionary income who want to buy the best of a product or the uniqueness of a product. So that's our difference between our premium and our luxury. Premium meaning the best of a product, a commodity. Luxury meaning small but significant and really linked to social class. So they can show their friends, look, I've got whatever the product is.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah. I think it linked with the like how much money that you earn per month or per years. Because when I young, I just buy the cheapest fruit, and then when I start working and I have some money, I will just try, what the taste of that premium fruit. But as you explained before, that there is another category, it's a luxury, like the melon. What melon?
yes, yeah, the special menu
Yeah,
from
from Japan, the
Japan,
square
muskmelon.
muskmelon,
Yeah.
but the price is so I think no, I will postpone later when I have more money to spend on those luxury fruits. But yeah, I think the demand is growing because when someone got in certain level, they want to try. Yeah, but try is different with that you can consume it every day. Maybe yes, one times a year, one times a month, but not every day. You eat those luxury fruits or any kind of food.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, what area of agribusiness research are you most excited about?
I think at the moment I'm excited about traceability.
Traceability.
And that is about food provenance. So today I visited a really wonderful shop,
Javara.
Javara.
Javara, yes.
What an amazing shop. Now, that shop had a map as you walked in the door, and it had all the spices and where they came from, and coffee, tea, from all over Indonesia. So, understanding and being able to market a product, knowing the provenance, where did it come from, that's very special.
Yes.
Special to the person who's going to consume it, perhaps put it in a special family meal, a celebration, a birthday, but special for the farmer who made the effort.
Yes.
So good food, good fun, good friends, and goodness for everyone.
So you're excited about traceability.
Yeah. Where has the food come from?
They put the photo of the farmer and the family, maybe the area and everything.
So let's bring back the digital technology and the AI now. So if we bring that back and we start to put the QR code on the product. And so then before the customer decides to buy, everyone's got a mobile phone. You can scan it. Where did my product come from? We can have some credentials, some evidence to show that that product is from where it says it's from. Because, it's not all good out there. There's some people pirating food, saying that food is from somewhere or saying it's a particular type of food, but it's not. So safety, support, credibility for the farmer, for the producer, for the country of origin. And then for the consumer to feel, yeah, I did help a farmer in Sumatra.
Okay.
That makes me feel good. Not that someone just whacked it together from another country or blended 3 countries' product together. That's I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying don't misrepresent the product as being that particular. Because there's a finite amount of whatever that spice is from Sumatra. So if it's finite, maybe it can move from everyday into premium. Ultimately, maybe it can move into luxury because there's a finite amount of it.
I understood.
But traceability is important to validate and prove what you've paid for is what it says it is and where it's come from.
Wow, interesting. I heard before about the cow in Switzerland, I think. They have a birth certificate up to 7 generation. So you can trace even the cow.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty amazing. Those Swiss, they're very good.
Is it necessary to do that, you think?
Look, maybe because of pride in the brand and Swiss farming, but also maybe if we look at the insults, we'll call it, the actions that have occurred over the last 2 decades. You may remember, or you may be too young, but we had an outbreak in England of what's called mad cow disease. So people for a long time stayed away from purchasing beef meat.
Okay.
Because of that. So when we do a lot of these things, they're about traceability, they're about proving provenance, but they're also about pride in a brand, in a nation, in a people, and in a farm.
Wow, very interesting that we can add that aspect in our product. Let's say like maybe I sell spices, I can tell like this is black pepper came from which area, or even specific from this farmer. Maybe we can add more value to the product, right? Okay. Finally, do you have any advice for our audience on how to build resilient and adapt in constantly changing agribusiness landscape?
Wow, that's so. My advice, first of all, is do your homework. As we said, explore, know the market, know the product, know the demand. Who are the people buying the product? And then make your product to the best standard you can. Don't take any shortcuts. Make it to the best. If you can only make a small amount, that's fine. Start by making a small amount and be true to your product and your brand. And then as you increase, you can increase what you're doing. But don't try to go too big too soon.
Professor Robert, thank you so much for your sharing with us today and about your experience. It's been fascinating to hear about the major trend and future of agribusiness. For one who interested in your work, where they can learn more about.
So, as you said, I'm from Griffith University, Australia. I look after an area called agribusiness. So, if you simply just Google Griffith Agribusiness, my team of people will come up and you can see all the little activities we do. And you can contact me via email on that page.
Oh.
So, looking forward to hearing from you. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you today.
Me also very honored that you want to spend your time with us in the studio. And don't forget to buy the book, okay?
Thank you.
Well, thank you once again, Professor Robert. I hope we can chat again on another episode. Thank you once again. Thank you so much.
That'd be great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And see you on another episode.